This new grinder from Profitec offers a lot of capabilities at a surprisingly attractive price point. There's really no other grinder at this price with the extreme precision of worm gear grind size adjustment combined with timed grind presets, flexible operation modes, and prosumer level build quality. Hey, Espresso lovers, Mark here from Latte Love. Coming up, I'll take you through all the details of the new Profitec Twist A54 Grinder. You'll learn how to use it, including how to set it up and to get the right grind size for your first espresso. I'll have test results for grind particle distribution, timed grinding dose-to-dose, weight output consistency, compare sound levels to other similar grinders, and I've got a new test we're running on espresso grinders with additional particle analysis to determine just how precise grind size adjustment is. You know, grind size is critical for espresso, so how easy is it to make those tiny adjustments? You'll also learn what you should know before purchasing this grinder, a couple of minor points to be aware of. Beyond that, a look inside at build quality, some usage tips, custom wood options, and other accessories. So the basics. The Twist A54 is an espresso specialist. You twist the knurled knob here, hence the name Twist, to turn a worm gear to change grind size. Later in that particle analysis testing, we'll see with this setup, it's possible to change your median particle size by as little as 1 micron. The display angles up for easy viewing, and the grinder has 3 operating modes. There's select mode, which uses the buttons to select between 1 or 2 cup doses, with the portafilter activated switch starting, pausing, and resuming grinding. In barista mode, the portafilter activated switch selects and starts your dose, 1 push for a single and 2 for the double time. In single dose mode, you can set a much longer grind time, and a push of the switch starts grinding and another push stops and immediately resets the timer. Now, I'll go through how to use all 3 modes and program them in the next section. The housing is all metal, including the faceplate and portafilter activation switch. A thumb screw loosens to adjust this hook. It's going to give you enough range to go from bottomless up to narrower and taller portafilters to do hands-free grinding. The bean hopper has a capacity of about 250 grams, a little more than half a pound. There's a plastic catch tray for errant grounds with cutouts that surround rubber feet. Ground coffee, it falls nicely centered into a portafilter. At espresso grind sizes, coffee comes out fluffy and relatively clump-free. I did notice some minor clumping when grinding more oily coffees. So let's go through how to use this grinder. In this section, I'll cover changing those modes and programming grind times. Then we'll move on to how to find your zero grind setting and where to set your grinder to start dialing in for espresso. So those 3 modes are select, barista, and single dose. The grinder is going to come out of the box in select mode. To switch modes, press the 2 buttons simultaneously. Then use the left arrow down button to toggle through the modes, and use the right check mark to select the mode you want to use. The hand with buttons icon is select mode. Portafilter with switch icon, that denotes the barista mode, and the cup icon is the single dose mode. The eye icon gives resettable information on the number of grind cycles run for each dose size. In select mode, you're going to use those buttons to select your dose, then tap the activation switch with your portafilter to start grinding. Another tap pauses grinding, and you can tap again to resume. If you don't tap to resume, within 5 seconds, the time resets. In barista mode, taps of the portafilter select the dose used. 1 for the single time, 2 taps for the double, and if you press and hold the activation switch, after a few seconds, the grinder goes into manual dosing and continues grinding until you release the activation switch. To program time for the select or barista modes, press and hold the left button to program single dose grind times or the right button to program the doubles. When the time starts flashing, use the buttons to decrease or increase grind times in 1/10 of a second increments. Once you have the time you want, after a short wait, the grinder exits out of programming and the new time is saved. Now, it works the same in single dose mode, but time there is programmable from 20 to 60 seconds in 10-second increments. You know, one of the most common questions I get down in the comments is, what grind setting should I use? You know, since the numbers and markings on most grinders do not relate to a particular grind size, and I don't know your variables or equipment, it's a question that's, going to be really tough to answer. But no worries, I can get you in the ballpark on the twist here. First, find your zero grind setting. To do that, run the grinder with no beans loaded and continue adjusting the grind size finer until you hear the burrs just touching, and then quickly back off until that sound stops. It's going to sound like this. And that point, that's your zero or finest possible grind setting. In my testing for Espresso, a good place to start with this grinder is about 3.3 numbers to the coarser side from your zero grind setting. So set that, grind a little, pinch the grind between your fingers. You're in the ballpark if it holds together a bit and you can vaguely see your fingerprints. From there, you can start pulling shots and dialing in to refine your grind size. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the dial-in process, you can use a link up here, or I put that down in the description for my video that's going to show you how to do that. You're going to hear me say this again in this video, but you know what? A scale is your best friend when making espresso. When changing grind size, you want to keep that coffee dose weight the same. And of course, weighing your coffee is going to be the most accurate method for doing that. Keep in mind, when you change grind size, the amount of coffee ground in a given amount of time is going to change too. So, when you grind coarser, the weight's going to go up. Grind finer in the same amount of time, and it's going to go down. So use the tips here to find a starting grind size and dial in from there using the simple process detailed in that video I've linked on how to dial in. Before testing a grinder, we dial in to produce a median particle size in the Espresso range of 250 microns, plus or minus 10%, using the Latte CM200 particle analyzer. Doing that gives us a level playing field where we can compare to other grinders. Now, on the Twist A54, in that dial-in, we ended up at a median particle size of 249 microns, well within and almost perfectly on our standard. Here's a graph of distribution with the percentage of particles in each micron range. So the distribution here, it's similar to other flat burr grinders we've tested, with the highest percentage of particles in the smallest under 200 micron range and a nearly linear fall off out to 425 microns, and then a steep percentage drop from there. So first, we test for consistency of timed dose weight output. During dial-in, we estimated a grind time of 13.9 seconds for an 18-gram dose. Then we ran that time cycle 10 times and weigh each. Here's a graph of those results. We hit an average dose of 18.29 grams, and these are good results. The doses in the middle are almost right on the average, with more variation in the first and last few doses. The slight upward trend in weight throughout is common in our grinder testing. The theory here is that grinders warm up, causing coffee oils to better lubricate components, reducing friction on beans and grounds, leading to slightly higher grinding rates. Now, using the data from the consistency results, average grinding speed came in at 1.32 grams per second. With that information in hand, the math says a grind time of 13.6 seconds would have put us a little closer to our 18-gram target dose. That grinding speed is within a few tenths of other grinders we've tested in the 50 to 55 millimeter burst size range. For sound tests, we place a meter at operator ear level from the grinder and measure both average and peak dBA. It came in at an average of 73 and a peak of 73.6. For comparison, we recently tested a Eureka Silenzio, which came in at 71 average and 75.6 peak. Readings in the low 70s are similar to what you'd hear from a car driving by or a washing machine. To find out just how precise grind size control is, we adjusted one whole number coarser on the scale from our dialed-in espresso setting, ground some coffee, and ran another particle analysis. The median particle size went from 249 to 260 microns. The one whole number change on the scale, that required turning the twist knob 3 complete rotations or 1080 degrees. With that, we calculated a 98-degree rotation of the knob results in about a 1 micron change in median grind size. That worm gear setup, yeah, it's perhaps the most precise grind size adjustment available on coffee grinders. For comparison, in our testing of this Eureka grinder, it was a 2-degree turn of the dial to get a 1 micron change in median particle size. So go ahead, crunch all those numbers, and the Twist worm gear has about 50 times the resolution of the Eureka. Now, that said, I've never had a problem dialing in Eureka grinders, but if you're a freak for precision, you're not going to do better than a worm gear adjustment. To get inside the Twist, first remove these 2mm Allen head screws which hold on the worm gear mechanism. Now, I like that Profitec uses these higher quality fasteners. Then turn out the top burr carrier to expose the grinding chamber. The threads on the top burr carrier adjustment are fine, and the whole package there is very substantial. You can see the stuck retention with a trace of ground coffee circling the chamber above the level of the 3 sweeper arms. You'll also have some in the horizontal bore between the chamber and delivery chute. I measured about 2 grams of total stuck retention after a clean out. You know, that's a fairly typical number for this design style of flat burr grinder. For a fresh dose on grinders of this type, you are going to want to purge a few grams and discard before doing your real dose. The build is substantial. I like the smooth post rising from the lower burr carrier. A lot of times you're going to see a regular hexagonal nut used there in other grinders. When you open up this grinder, you're going to want to be really meticulous about cleaning. Ground coffee or coffee oil accumulation in the threads can restrict movement. When you reattach the top burr carrier, first turn it counterclockwise until you feel those threads drop in, and then turn it clockwise. If you feel any restriction, the threads may be crossing, so turn it back out and try again. The threads are very fine, so make sure they're lined up properly and don't force things. By removing these 3 screws, you can replace the adjustment scale with this alternate in a metallic silver, which comes with a grinder. The main body of the grinder is all metal and seamless, including the transition to the top. Like the worm gear fasteners, those used in other areas are all higher quality Allen or Torx head types. So as always, my #1 tip, if you're serious about your espresso, get and use a scale. You know, weighing ground coffee and output in your cup is going to help you successfully produce consistent results. If you want to learn again how to dial in your grind using a scale, watch my video. It's going to be down in the description there. If you need a scale, top picks are the Akaya Lunar and the Varia Accu. The Lunar has app logging connectivity, and the Accu has lunar quality without the connectivity at about half the price. Next, and this goes for any grinder, find your 0 grind setting. You know, like most grinders, markings and numbers on adjustments are for reference and usually do not represent a particular grind size or brew method. So knowing your grinder 0 point, that's going to give you a reference and will help you with things like getting back to dial-in range after cleaning. The portafilter top hook is held in place by a single thumb screw. Once you're set up for your portafilter, be sure and tighten that securely. Otherwise, it can turn and shift to the side. The hopper stopper is most often closed to allow one to remove the hopper with beans loaded so you can switch them out without making a mess. If you close it and are not removing the hopper, it's going to be a little difficult to open as there's not a lot of clearance there, but you can lift the hopper a bit without removing if you needed to get it open. And speaking of hoppers, they are not the best place to store your beans. The Day Hopper here by Vitamin allows you to load up several shots worth of coffee, about 50 grams at a time, while leaving the majority of your beans in storage for optimal freshness. Also from Vitamin, these beautiful custom wood hopper lids and WD-T tools for stirring grinds in your portafilter. So who's this grinder for? You know, the Twist A54 is set up for espresso and grinding directly into a portafilter. If you're into precision, it really doesn't get any more precise than the worm gear adjustment. Of course, that precision also makes it really impractical for multi-purpose use. It's got to be something like 100 full turns to go from espresso to filter. Like all grinders of this design, there is some stuck retention of ground coffee. Not a big deal if you're grinding back-to-back doses, but in other cases, if you want a perfectly pure dose, you're going to want to purge a couple of grams. Now, some stuff to be aware of. That hopper stopper, we talked about that. It's kind of difficult to open when it's on the grinder, but lift the hopper up a bit and you can get your fingers on it. Again, the typical use for that is closing it to remove the hopper and dump beans. So again, another not big deal in my mind. Now, I do wish there was some rubber on the portafilter support here. A couple of the portafilters I used moved just a little bit when I was using them hands-free. If it bothered me enough, I'd place a couple of self-adhesive rubber dots or something similar there to stop that. The Twist A54, it offers a very attractive price on flatbird grinding with incredibly precise grind size adjustment, plus those flexible timed grinding modes. And it's going to couple that with excellent build quality. There's no other grinder at this price that has the timed grinding with this level of precision and build. Now, if you have any questions about the Twist A54 or anything coffee, use those comments and I'd be happy to get you a detailed answer. And if you love coffee and espresso as much as I do, be sure, of course, to like and subscribe. I'm Mark, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll come back soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.